Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what is now, I believe, the penultimate round here at PLR for the World Tour Season 2. Here at very, very wet Imola. I believe it has changed, though, in terms of the climate, because I believe someone logged onto the practice server and it was completely flooded. So I believe it's changed a tiny bit. I'm not sure how much it has changed since they completely updated it, but it is still wet to say the least, so it might be a blessing for these drivers that it actually has been updated just a tiny bit. But it is definitely still going to be an interesting one for these drivers, as we have hopped straight into qualifying here. At the moment, it does seem Madsen is on pole position with 149.467, followed then by Itchery in the Ferrari 296. I thought that was a what's it called, a 488 for a second, with a 149.605. And then it's also going to be Mike Waller in the Honda, which is definitely a peculiar car to see on the podium, or in the server, let alone on the podium step, with a 149.715. That is what we have currently rounded out in terms of the top three so far, but we do see there is a significant improvement here from Jeffrey Witter, who goes across the line, but only places himself up into P8 then, after his lap has been completed with a 150.075. It does seem it's quite spread out so far. Actually, now looking at it closely, it is actually quite close together, but it does just seem that it's quite far apart, because it does seem Madsen has set quite a nice comfortable gap for himself there. It's actually only 2/10 now, so it does seem it is starting to become closer and closer as we speak. But we do see the rest of the AMs are just setting their final times now, as well as Fratila. I'm not sure if I've heard of this guy before. I'm not sure if he's been in the server before. But I apologize if you have been, but I haven't actually heard of his name here before. Currently going through, I believe, turn 8. Now, there was a yellow flag there, which is unfortunate, because I can actually see, due to the new update of what I currently use, race control, there is absolutely no help when it comes to crashes, because there's no yellow flag detections anymore due to some API change in the system. So it's a bit annoying. So I kind of have to guess who's crashed by who's lost that many places in about 5 seconds. But hopefully when the new API is either revoked, or at least there's some sort of loophole found for it, it should all be working normally, and we can actually get some actual nice crashes. I'm not sure if that's how you would say it, but we do see it now. Revrock is in that BMW M4. Does seem to be a tiny bit unlucky with traffic there from the Ferrari 296, so I believe that could have been Bao there behind him, but we do see come through the penultimate corner now. 2.5 tenths up on his best lap time. Seemed to lost quite a bit of it going through the final complex. He is actually going to go into the red delta. He isn't going to be able to improve there into the final corner. In fact, he is just losing time over time here. Osric, major dent in the Alpha Motorsports. It does seem all of the liveries have sunk finally, which I am very, very happy to say. Going through now the final 3 corners. I'm not sure if you can call it kinky corner. I know in Red Bull Ring they do call turn 2 is that really, really minor corner before turn 3, which is that ultimate hairpin. Reducing now, Osric Major actually looking to set quite a decent lap time here, 1.3 seconds up on his best lap time. Goes across the line now to go up into what is going to be P5 there. I had to scroll up on the leaderboard there, with only 1.2 seconds between him and Madsen in P1 with a 149.7, so it is starting to decrease there. It does seem Madsen is starting to chip away there on his lap time now with a 148.542. It is going to slowly start decreasing as he is once again on for a faster lap time, as well as what we do see is actually Mike Waller taking P2 now away from Axel Itchery, as we do see him coming across the line. It isn't going to be enough to improve once again, but as well as James Terry in the Aston Martin of the Delta Hunters. I believe there is another Delta Hunter car out on circuit. I'm not sure who it is. It might be Bao. I think it is Bao. It is Bao, so there is 2. So I had to find that out. But we do actually see Axel Itchery does take away Mike Waller's P2 provisionally with 148.7. So there's actually really close between those two, of just under a tenth between them both. So hopefully that does stay like that during the race as well. But we go further down as well with Ed Revrock in that BMW M4. Does go a bit wide there into the penultimate corner. Still maintaining quite a big amount of lap time gainage. Now going through. I'm not even sure if you can call that a corner. Going through the start finish straight. Does go up, but he's not going to be able to go up any position so far. It does decrease his gap significantly to P11 there by about 5/10. So it just shows you how far the gap actually was then, but it's now down to 3/10, pretty much exactly. Tom Week saying good luck everyone, good luck to you too. You are in a server, I do see you, number 6. But I did actually see some of the YouTube comments earlier, because I do sometimes check them when I get notifications. But I was saying how I said it was it's Harley Burn and it's not Harley Brown. I didn't know that until, well, yeah, today. So luckily hopefully I'll remember that, and I apologise for the shock of me bottling another name. And this time it wasn't a mid-European name, so I don't really have an excuse, to be honest. But Ricardo Colombo now going on to start for this straight. 8/10 up once again. Will potentially put him up quite a few positions. No, it might actually, it puts him up 1, but he had quite a significant gap there between himself and P13 now, or originally P12. As well as Enrico Itri in the E3 Racing Ferrari 296 going through the final complex of corners as well. 1.5 tenths up on his name before we do see now the pros will start coming out in the next, I think it's 2 to 4 minutes. It might be a bit less as we do see him now coming through the final corner. He is going to be up quite significantly there of 3/10 up into his pit best lap time, going on to start finish straight to go across the line to try and take away up into P6 there, taking away 2 people's positions of 149.690. I don't know what that took me so long to say, but we got there in the end. And then it's going to be Adnan Halavak, I believe how you say it. Going good luck everyone. Go Dino. I think it's Dino or Dino. I believe he is an AM driver, or am I going crazy? I'm not sure actually. I might be going crazy. I'm not sure what class he is in. I know the name is very familiar, so hopefully do see him soon. Burn being able to set a lap time now. The final few laps after qualifying here for the AMs before we see the pros let out, but there seems to be quite an even split of drivers here tonight in terms of how many AMs to pros there are for tonight. Oh, he's your brother. I see. Yeah, you know what, that would make sense. Actually, I still can't see a Halavak. Oh, there he is. There you go, there's your brother. Is it Dino? I'm assuming it's Dino or Dino. I don't think it's Dino because that sounds like a dinosaur, even though that's a lot more easier for me to remember. I'm going to say Dino Halavak in the BMW M4, currently in P9. 150.017, just on the border of the 49s and the 50s. It's going to be a bit more difficult for the pros, it seems, because it does seem the rain is going to get harder in the next 10 minutes, which could mean the track quality does become worse and worse over time. James Terry currently in P5, going up to P4 there with about 3/10 his name. Up on his best lap time now with 149.145. Taking himself up into P4, but we do see Robert Jennings is actually trying to take that back away. Currently about 3/10 up to his name, going through turn 6, 7, 8 and 9. Now, loses unfortunately a lot of his time, in fact all of his time, going through the final complex of sector 2, as well as now Enrico Itri in the Ferrari 296, actually gaining quite a bit of time going into sector 2 now, going into turn 5. It's quite a decent exit there. Still going to lose a tiny bit of time, but still gaining around half a tenth just by the exit speed, as well as now James Terry once again on fire going into sector 3. Still being able to hold that lap time. In fact, he might be able to take pole here by the amount of time he actually has to say. If it's a valid lap time, though, that is something we have to take into consideration. You see a handful of Yams now back in pits, not sure if they will be able to do another lap time. Does seem James Terry is going to be the top improver at the moment. We're on board with him going through the final 2 corners, going through the penultimate one now, nearly second up to his name. This could be enough to put him on pole position. He needs 6 tenths. He's currently got 8 tenths. He does go through the final corner, still gaining But he is on the border of now losing the 8/10 mark. Going up through the final corner. This will be enough for pole position. If it's a valid lap time, he goes up to take pole position. 148.390 there for the AMs, are being currently pole position in the AM class with 1.5 gap to his name. So that is a nice and comfortable lead for him so far, with not a lot of time for any drivers to do any sort of room for improvement, to say the least. As well as now Jeffrey Witter in the AF Corsa. They're going through turn 5. Cusping now both the red and green Delta, but still being able to hold on to it. Can gain at least a 10th into this, and that actually can put him up into P9 if he's able to try and maintain a second Delta throughout the entire lap. So as we do see again, Byrne going through the final part of the start finish straight. Does have an improvement, but unfortunately it isn't going to be a valid, it is going to be a valid lap time, but he's not going to be able to improve enough for himself there. As well as we do see Jeffrey Witter going through now the final chicane, a very, very difficult chicane to say the least, and I reckon we might see quite a few track limits being proceeded here, especially on the exit of that. I have seen quite a few nasty incidents happen in this game around that exit, so that is just something I hope it doesn't happen today. As well, we do see Enrico Itri as well going through that exact same corner complex. 2.5 tenths up now, still gaining. Getting closer to 3/10 mark. Losing quite a bit of it though onto the exit of the penultimate corner, going through the ultimate corner. It doesn't seem he's going to have enough speed to, well, keep the green Delta. He might be able to improve very minimal improvements, but he does go across the line, but it is barely going to be an improvement, and he chips away just ever so slightly. But that is going to be the final of the AMs doing their final time here. But we do now see Dean Zinobovic, the only driver currently in the championship standings for, well, leading it, because he has won, I believe, every single race apart from Red Bull Ring, when Seattle took quite a dominant race to say the least. But it does seem Dean is having quite a comfortable lead for the time being, going through turn 1 now for his first timed lap. That might not be valid going through the exit of turn 2. Still seems to be flying for it, so I'm assuming it's still going to be a flying lap, as we can see in his Delta how much he is improving. It doesn't seem he is actually improving that much. It might change in the next few moments. No one in the Pro Class yet to, well, actually receive a green Delta just yet. It might change, but it might just be broken on my side for now, but hopefully that isn't going to be the case. Does seem still no one actually improving, so I'm assuming there might be a tiny bit of a bug on this side. We will go on to the next lap. This is where we start to see the base lap times being set of the pros, to see if they will still be intercepted by the AMs, or if it's actually going to be a bit of a separation divide in terms of pace there. We do see that's going to be Greg Ellis spinning onto the final corner. He's not going to be too happy about that. He might be up on his personal best lap time. Unfortunately, he's just going to have to sit there and wait for the rest of the traffic to become clear. Goes through the final corner. He does go up into P6 there. Dean pulling himself up into P6, and it is going to be Mikiro at the moment. Pole position with 148.362, so we do start seeing the Delta is starting to be fluctuating. Now Dean Zinobovic trying to gain on this lap time. It does seem already going through the first few corners, was able to gain 5 tenths there, so he might be able to actually go back on pole. He needs 8 tenths to be able to take pole position here for himself, or provisionally to say the least. Maybe being able to take away pole then from Migiro. It does seem there's a bit of a pattern here. It does seem the Aston Martins might be a tiny bit dominant here. It does seem P2 to P4, or P1 to P4 are all Aston Martins for the time being. That could change, because we do see Dean is still quite steadily improving, well, getting closer to the 7/10 boundary on how much time he is actually going to gain. Actually now closer to a second now, so he has actually quite comfortably gained the time going through the end part of Sector 2, going to Sector 3, so that could still change. As well as weeks up, 4 attempts after his per lap time, will be able to improve his time quite significantly, but we do actually see Vink is improving at quite a significant rate here as well, but we do see he might be very, very unlucky here, because he still could be able to preserve his pole position from Dean, but at the moment, he does have what seems to be a tiny bit of traffic in front of him. I'm not sure who that car is in front of him. I believe, actually I don't really know who it is. I believe it might be Ed actually in front of him, but does seem he's still being able to maintain somewhat of a gap, so dirty air hopefully shouldn't be applied with it as well. But we do see Olavi was up into P2, but we do see Dean was able to take pole position here, but it isn't going to be enough here for Vink to actually improve back up into P1, but he is going to be able to decrease the gap between him and P1 and increase it between him and P2 and P3. Goes across the lap time, 3/10 between them both now, but we do see Dean is improving once again, going through Sector 2 now. 10th and a half so far, as Shremkovic currently going through, I believe that is going into Sector 2, yeah, going into Turn 5 now. It is going to be 5/10 up on his per lap time, so he actually could be able, oh, it does make a bit of a mistake there, and that is probably going to cost his lap there. It does seem he is going to have to try and let the traffic behind him go, because it does seem they might both be on those flying laps. It's a very unfortunate scenario there for him. Does just pull over to the side there. Respect that. And he does have to try again. Still 30 minutes to go though, so there is no panicking to say the least. You can still easily set a valid lap time in that time. In fact, you can set precisely 4.25 laps. That's probably completely wrong, but that's trying to do quick maths there. But to see Eric now as well, 4.10 per lap time. That wasn't English. But is going to go across the line to decrease the gap. It does seem he loses a tiny bit on corner exit there. Goes across the line into P3 there, so still very, very close between them two, of Robert Olavi and then Eric Bigiro. Close to 5 thousandths of a second between them both. So that is starting to get a bit close between those two, but I didn't actually expect wet weather would bring this close to racing so far during qualifying, but hopefully this is the same appearance during the race as well. Ed now actually looking to increase his gap. It does seem he's currently got 6/10 to his name going through the final corner. Going to be able to keep it is the other question. Goes through the start finish straight with 7/10 to his name now, so he is going to be able to improve massively. He goes across the line now to go up to P15, so it does tell you even 7/10 there wasn't enough to actually go up quite a chunk of positions, and just tells you how spread out the midfield actually are at the moment. Jeremy Swanson in that Mercedes AMG going through what is going to be turn 4 and then 5, as well as Blekik in that McLaren 720S Evo going through turn 8 now. Does seem no one is still improving at this time being, as it stands, Dean Zonobovic being in pole position with a 147.155, followed then by Vink with a 3.5 tenth, well, disadvantage, I guess you could say, to Zonobovic of a 147.482, then followed by Migiro 1 second off the leader's time with 148.202. So it is quite spread out between the top three at the moment. But it seems, well, P3 all the way to P15 are within a second of the leader. And actually they are within, yeah, 7/10 of each other from 3 till 15. So there is actually quite a bit of competitivity in this part of the midfield. Shremkovic now going through the same corner he made a mistake on last time, unfortunately, but it does seem this time he is able to keep it clean. So hopefully he can set a nice lap time for himself here, being up into P9 quite strong here for himself. Does seem he gets a tiny bit too much curb action there. Something you do not want to be doing in the wet conditions at all if you can try to avoid, especially with the AstroTurf as well. You can actually send yourself flying with that stuff, as well as Robert Alavi now going through the final 2 corners as well. Quite difficult braking zone, and downhill braking always an issue for GT3 cars, or just cars in general, to be honest. But it does seem he comes across the line. It does seem he's fighting for a green lap time, but it does seem he's going to try to practice his pit entry, which is always something good to do, because you can get quite a bit of time on pit entry. As we do see Vink now going on for a new flying lap going through turn 1 and 2. Got to be fighting for a green delta at the moment, but it does seem going through turn 3 he is able to actually gain 2 tenths already, so that is a good sign here for himself to be able to try fight Dean for pole position here, which is actually going to be quite interesting between them both. If he's able to do it, he does seem to loses it. They're going into turn 5. Is still fluctuating between green and red at the moment, so he might be able to still improve later on to the lap as well. We do actually see Dean Sonobovic is actually improving once again. It's just less than a 10th as we speak, but depending where he is just behind Vink, so he actually through 5 corners he's actually been able to improve just under 2 tenths now going into turn 6. Doesn't seem many other people are actually improving. Tom Week is, though, as we do see him going through turn 7 and 8. 3 tenths to his name now. Near 5 tenths, actually. This can actually improve him. Well, potentially up into P15, taking a dead spot if he's able to maintain it. As it stands, he will be able to maintain 4 attempts. Might not be able to take on air dead, but he might be able to take on... No, he loses it all on exit there, so I kind of commentators cursed him there. I apologise for that. That is going to be his lap time over, but it does seem Vink once again trying to improve on for a new lap. It does seem he goes wide going to turn 3 there, fighting for green delta here. It does seem Dean, though, wasn't able to maintain that new flying lap he did earlier, but it does seem they're actually quite close with each other. We do see Vink now going through turn 5, as well as we do now see Zonobovic going through turn 4, so there isn't much of a gap between them both. So hoping there is no interference between them both. It does seem some people are actually starting to get a bit of a grip to the cars, it seems. Greg Ellis actually currently in P18, but actually looking to improve himself potentially into P15 at the rate he's currently going. 5 tenths up going through turn 7 and 8. Going into probably the most tricky corner. Is this very, very tight chicane. Braking as late as you can, trying to hug the sausage curves as much as you can without being flung into orbit and without getting an invalid lap time. Does seem he's able to do that, still gaining going through the penultimate corner. 6 tenths up on his first lap time. He's on for a fly here. Going through the exit, a very sketchy exit, not much of a runoff area at all, and there is a very, very big punishment if you get it wrong, because you do go into that gravel trap and you lose all of your momentum and your lap time in this case. Going through the start finish straight now. He is still up on his lap as he goes up into P60 now with a 149.045, putting himself up into P16 in that Ferrari 296. But we do actually see Dean is improving going across the start finish now. It does seem he got past Vink there. I'm not sure how that happens. Is just going to chip away on the lap time a tiny bit. It isn't going to be a valid lap time though. As it stands, it does seem Vink going back into the pits as well. So I'm not sure who that blue Aston Martin behind him actually is then. So I was assuming it was Vink, but Vink is actually in pits as we speak. Christian Mayer in that McLaren 720S Evo. Again, a name I don't think I recognise if I'm being honest. I'm not sure why, but I'm hoping there'll be something. That they are racing for the rest of the season. In terms of how many drivers we have tonight, it seems we have 34 drivers. Anthony Fox up 1.1 seconds so far in his first best lap time, but he is 3 seconds down so far. He goes across the start-finish straight now. Puts himself up into P20 there. Good lap time there from him. Tom Week as well. Going through, I believe, turn 7. Yeah, going through to 7 and 8. Four minutes left of qualifying so far. Still the only one who is improving. So you do actually see Dabrowski, a car we haven't seen much of at all today. Going through the final corner, 4 tenths up on his first best lap time. Could potentially put himself up into P18 if he tries really hard on exit. It doesn't seem it's going to be achievable. I believe he comes across the line now. To go up into P18, so it is going to be achievable. 149.375. Provisionally P18. We do actually see Christian Mayer as well. Finishing the complex of Sector 1 in the middle of the Sector 2 complex. 1/10 up on his name so far. Do actually see Dean is improving quite significantly so far as well, going through into turn 5 now. Currently just under 2 tenths. Could potentially put him into the boundaries of the 46s. As well as we do see Robert Alavi going through the final corner. Just under a tenth on his first best lap time. Loses a lot of it on exit. In fact, he loses all on exit, so it's not going to be much of an improvement at all for him. And we do see Sremkovic actually looking to try and improve his lap time quite significantly and could put himself up into P4 if he's lucky here. He was up near just over 6 tenths, but did lose a tiny bit on exit. It was turn 5. Turn 6 does take it quite efficiently here. Sure, it's trying to keep it on the roads. It's definitely your main priority, with still being semi-fast, I guess you could say. Sremkovic is definitely one of the faster drivers. Definitely faster than me, that's a fact. Losing a lot of his time on exit does seem, but going through the very, very tight chicane does seem he takes a lot of the sausage curb there. Losing, unfortunately, a bit of his time and now fighting between the 10th boundary. Still has 2 corners which you can make a significant amount of time of. Takes a lot of the inside curb there through the kink, but does seem going through the penultimate corner now. Loses a lot of his time on exit, unfortunately. Can he gain it back through the ultimate corner? Doesn't seem he is going to be able to. And he is going to have to try once again. He still has enough for one more lap. So far as Zorakic as well. Enough for one more lap for himself as well. Fighting between the red and green delta at the moment. Still up, but it's still not going to be a lot, to say the least, I guess you could say. As well as we can see Dabrowski actually improving at quite a significant rate. He was quite far up at one point, it does seem. Dropped further and further down the order. Has one more lap to try and get this right. 2 attempts up on his first lap time. Still improving. 4 attempts now. Going through the exit of turn 6. Trying to push as much as he can, because he can potentially go up into P16. If he's able to. It does seem he backs off. I'm not sure why he backs off there. I'm assuming he could have invalidated going into turn 7. Tom Week, the only one who's actually improving as we speak, going through the tight chicane. Turn 9 is able to improve on exit there. 1.5 tenths up on his first lap time. Still improving 2.5 tenths now as we speak, losing a tiny bit on exit, but can he try it going through the ultimate corner? Yes, he can. Still fighting for a 10th going through the final corner. This is going to be his final lap, unfortunately for him. Is still able to improve, but it's not going to be a significant improvement from himself. 4 hundredths of a second, off Anthony Fox. Still quite close between them both, but no one else actually really improving. So you speak as Tom Week goes into a wall there. Unfortunately there for himself. Robert Alavi not actually improving either, as well as Blackgate trying to improve, but now going through turn 8 into a wall. And that is going to be the end of qualifying here for tonight's race. We will have to see now going into the race if that can, well, be maintained. We have 4 minutes until we actually go, so we will have to see what happens with it. Does now just seem waiting for session to go green. So I still can't click drive, unfortunately, as I'm trying to do my magic. To go on for again the penultimate grid walk for this season. This season's gone quite quickly, if I say so myself. I know, unfortunately, I did miss last round. That was for a specific reason. But at the moment, we are back, and hopefully for the rest of the season as well. But we go on for the grid walk here. It is quite a long grid here for tonight's race. It isn't as big as what we've seen. Don't take that out of context. It's going to be Dean Zonobovic in P1, followed then by Vink in P2. Robert Olavi rounding out the podium position of P3, as well as Magiro and James Terry taking the top 5, as well as Declan Brogan, Zorkic and Madsen taking out the top 8 in that number 25 AMR. The 8 is Blackick and Sremkovic. Oh, I'm so sorry. Both of them McLarens, both 1-1 on 1-1 there. That's quite odd to see, but we do see as well Axel Itchy and Victor, both in 2 very, very next-gen cars, to say the least, as well as Mike Waller in that Honda NSX, as well as Jeremy Swanson and Ed rounding out the top 15 in that McLaren 720S Evo. Followed then by Greg Ellis in the PLR Esports Ferrari 296, number 218. Followed then by is Christian Mayer, I believe it is, with Dabrowski, Robert Jennings, and I think that's Enrico Itchy in the Ferrari 296, rounding out the top 20 then. Going outside the top 20, it's going to be Anthony Fox, Tom Week on Osric Major in the McLaren 720S Evo. I believe he is further and further down in the AMs, but it seems the AMs are quite competitive here for tonight as well. Followed then by Liam Bow, Halovac and Witter as well, rounding out the top 26, I believe, as well as Fratilia. And then it's going to be Ricardo Colombo on the left in the E3 Racing Ferrari 296. It's Revrock. It's going to be Hutton's Buttons as well in that Porsche 992, as well as Victor. And then it's going to be Max RS, as well as then Byrne and Stigvort, rounding out the entire grid here for tonight. It does seem actually it is going to start a green race here, which isn't something we see often. That's actually kind of interesting, to say the least. It's all going to go down to whose tyres it's going to be, whose gameplay, but it definitely is going to be something interesting, to say the least, to watch. I don't think I'd like to race it, but we have a minute until we go green. We'll go back onto the game screen now. You just have to wait for it. Now we do just get ready to go green here. It's 30 seconds until we go green, starting on a green track. So a lot of times I'm going to say green. Is it going to be a formation lap? So I assume quite a few people are going to be on those wet tyres, but it doesn't start off very well wet at all. I'm assuming actually some people might be on those dry tyres because there is that mandatory pit stop that you have to do at some point during the race. There is no pit window, but that will throw a spanner in the works for most drivers, to say the least. Gets ready to go green now. It does seem Stickvault is going to start from the pits. Might be a wise choice here for today's race. But everyone gets ready to go for quite a big grid, and it's very colourful as well, which I'd like to see. Relatively long formation lap here. I believe it's going to be around 3 to 4 minutes, depending on how fast Dean wants to get it over and done with trying to get the tyres. It's definitely going to be a crucial asset now for when the rain comes, because it is still quite a warm track, 26 degrees Celsius track. My brain is absolutely going, but that is definitely one of the hotter tracks, to say the least. It's not that hot because we have seen, I believe it was Nürburgring, but I believe it was just under 40 degrees Celsius, which is, I believe, the hottest it is going to get in today's series. But yeah, today's season. Does start with a very, very light rain for 10 minutes, and then 30 minutes goes to medium / light rain. So it is going to be something that is definitely going to be a pit strategy nightmare for some of these, but it does make the racing quite a bit better. Going into sector 2 now. You can see Dean just applying the brakes to try heat up the brakes and the cores of the tyres as quickly as he can. The majority of these drivers, well, I hope most of these drivers, being on those brake pads once in only an hour race, so they do last for that time. Going now through turn 9, the tight chicane. Green track is going to throw some people a bit off compared to what they were used to in qualifying to the wet conditions, so it is going to be a bit of a luxury for some of these drivers for the good few laps until it starts raining. So I believe it's going to be about 3 or 4 laps until we start to see rain, and that's where we do see people's dry confidence starting to wear off, and people's wet confidence, well, people who are better in the wet compared to they are in the dry, starting to become more and more confident, and start to see that some of the drivers starting to slack a tiny bit. So we go through the final corner. As they now formulate side by side, getting ready to start the penultimate round of the World Tour Season 2 here at Pro League Racing. Here, a very, very mixed weather. Imola starting off dry, potentially, well, not potentially, is going to get wet throughout the race as we go and get ready. We do see that is that one person into the pits. Might be a good idea, might not be, as we do see now going across the start-finish line in the next few moments. It is going to be Dean getting the inside line, so it's going to be an advantage point there for the leader. We do go green when we go over that white line now, as we do go green, as that was a very, very loud thing, to say the least. It does seem Dean already gets off quite well, but going further down, that is going to be Eric McGeary already trying to go on for these positions as quickly as he can, but it isn't going to work for him just yet. He actually loses the position there to Robert Arlovy, unfortunately there for him. But going further down as well, we do see Mike Waller in that the Honda, sorry, going side by side with the McLaren, I believe it is, of what is going to be Victor. He is still side by side going into turn 4. Now getting the inside line is going to be crucial for himself as he does keep it, but now going into the end part of turn 4, he is going to lose a position. That is going to be a tiny bit of an incident there. I believe that's the Brewski and Jeremy Swanson, unfortunately, off of each other, and that's going to be also Enrico Itri, or is that Ricardo Colombo? I believe that's Enrico Itri, just getting past to the portion on line 2 of what is going to be Anthony Fox. Going further up already, Dean Zanabovic already starting to create a tiny bit of gap with his opponent of Vink, but Vink already creating a 1.6 second gap to Alavi behind because of the battles that we saw earlier. So it's Greg Ellis now into P12, gaining 4 positions off the start of this race. Going through turn 8. Trying to get a better run there on Madsen. Isn't going to work from just yet. He just has to tuck himself behind into the tight chicane out of turn 9. They both get quite a bit of the front and the inside apex, but going further down as well. This is where it's starting to get a bit rowdy. As we can see, that's going to be Dino Halavac getting very, very close with Ricardo Colombo, I believe it is, as well. Be careful there, because now Ricardo has lost a bit of time to what is going to be Osric Major, who was able to go up a position as well. Needs to start updating soon. This is what we do want to see. The lead is starting to run away, but it does seem Vink is actually starting to catch. As it seems, I'm not sure what tyres he's currently on, but it does seem going on to the basic. He's got to be on the dries, but they're both on the dries, so that is probably why they're going so fast. In fact, I believe everyone's in on those dry tyres, so that is going to be a bit interesting for when time comes for rain. I'm not sure if anyone is going to be on those dry, the wet tyres, sorry. So do you now see Dean under a bit of pressure going through turn 5. He is going to try look for the inside line, potentially going to formulate some sort of switchback there. Isn't going to work. He's just going to have to go on to the rear of him now, going through turn 6. Again, starting to fall off a tiny bit there, Vink, but he will potentially, well, come back stronger than ever. Mike Waller now in the Rhubarb and Custard Racing. Livery had never actually noticed that name, going through turn 7 and 8, trying to attack what is going to be Axel Itri, but then I believe his brother of Enrico Itri just behind him now as he goes side by side there, going into turn 9. Needs to be very careful, very tight chicane, so not much racing room to be given. Does seem that is just going to be Axel Itri just backing off a tiny bit now, going through the exit out of turn 9. It's going to be able to him just to zoom by once again, and that's going to be Mike Waller back down into his original position. In fact, he has become under more of a disadvantage now to the other Itri of Enrico, trying to attack and go through the penultimate corner. Goes for a switchback. It does seem that's going to be Mike Waller, unfortunately going a bit wide there into the exit of the penultimate corner. Now he does have to sit behind once again, but he does have that slipstream, which is going to be a crucial asset here for himself. But now they go side by side going into the start finish straight. As we do see now, the rain has started. It's very, very minimal how much rain there actually is. There's not anything to worry about just yet. Now going side by side into turn 1 between these two. Mike Waller's still having the inside line going into it now, but Enrico Itri has to back off once again. Now we do see Anthony Fox wanting to get involved in this as well. This is going to start getting a tiny bit rowdy. Now Fox wants to try go for the inside line going into turn 4. Backs off and waits for a more sensible and suitable moment to do it, as it does seem to go a tiny bit wide there. Enrico Itri is going to lose 2 positions there to what is going to be Dabrowski and Anthony Fox. He is going to try retaliate to regain his position of P17 to at least only lose 1 position. Goes side by side now going into turn 5, going into turn 6. Now he still has the advantage of the overspeed there and keeps the position for now, but we do see Dabrowski is not over. He's going to try go for the inside line going into turn 6. Just again has to back out. And now we do also see Robert Jennings is going to try get involved with this, as well as what we do see is going to be Ricardo Colombo in the E3 Racing livery as well. So there's Halavac starting to regain momentum on the train as well. As well as going down Hutton's Buttons, trying to go side by side here, going through turn 6. A lot of damage there, unfortunately, to his 296, I believe, as he goes side by side now with what is going to be Fratila at full position going into turn 7 and 8. He has the outside line. There's going to be, oh, there was almost contact there between them both, but that's unfortunately going to be Fratila spinning out. But there was no contact, fortunately, for both drivers involved. But Tom Week now trying to look for moves on Jeremy Swanson. Isn't going to work from just yet. As well as we do see that it's going to be, I believe, Jeremy. Is it Jeffrey or Jeremy? It's Jeffrey, sorry. Witter behind him, trying to get past as well. Again, if they fight for too long, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be under a higher amount of risk than ever. So now we do see there's actually a very, very bad moment there for Wichter going through turn 1. That's going to cause now Blackie to go side by side within the McLaren vs McLaren. Going into turn 4, Wichter being able to have the inside line going into turn 4. Now going into the end part of it. Still has the inside line there. Blackie still side by side though. This is where we will see Victor getting the higher advantage going through turn 5, having the better angle on the corner, having the inside line going through turn 5. Is it still side by side? No, it's not. It seems Victor was able to defend his place of P9 for now, but I believe Black actually lost that position, it seemed. So very, very good move happening there from him, as well as going further down. It's actually going to be Sremkovic, sorry. Now in P7, all over the rear of Declan Brogan for position. Can't even see him in this camera until last minute, going through turn 9. As well as that, we can actually see Brogan starting to almost try to do some sort of attack for James Terry's position of P5 in that Delta Hunted Aston Martin V8. Isn't going to work from just yet. Robert Jennings under a bit of pressure there as well from what is going to be Dino Halovac, who's actually gained a few positions currently in P. I think he's in P21 at the moment. But do you see this is starting to get a bit more severe? The rain is still very, very minimal how much rain we're actually seeing. But it has changed the track condition to greasy, so this is where we're going to start seeing those tyres starting to become cooler and cooler, and that's when we're going to see more mistakes becoming more and more prone, especially spinning because of these curbs getting wetter and wetter. Now, as we can actually see Sremkovic actually getting a lot of overspeed there, going through turn 2, now going to turn 3, 4 and 5. Want to try get the better momentum going through the exit of the corner. Is what he's trying to do, an attempt, but it isn't going to work for him just yet, as we do have to wait until James Terry has at least tried to create a tiny bit of breathing space for himself, which has seemed to have happened now. It's only 4 attempts, but now that 4 attempts could be crucial for Sremovic, sorry, to get by. As well as that, starting to already lose a few battles, which isn't great for us, but Mike Waller now all over the rear of him isn't going to work from just yet, as he just has to, well, again, tuck behind him in that Honda racing on Axelitri to try regain the position he originally lost due to the little issue he had going into turn 10, I believe it was 10 or 11. Going to turn 9, he's going to do a huge send there going into it. It's never going to work, unfortunately. And once again, he's lost that same position to Anthony Fox. And now once again, at risk of Enrico Itri behind him as well in the E3 Racing livery. And that's a very unfortunate day there for Mike Waller, to say the least. I'm not sure what tried to happen. I think he just got a tiny bit eager, to say the least, under braking. That's unfortunately what lost him that position. Now, again, side by side with him and Enrico Itri, it seems, for position. He is still going to have the overspeed in that Honda, sorry. Side by side is always going to be crucial here for him. I already hear a sound trap going off, but it doesn't seem anyone has gone off, which is good. It's actually going to be Anthony Fox going side by side with what is going to be, I believe that's Axel Itri, going into turn 4. So we actually see Mike Waller as well trying to get past, but that's going to be a huge hand there from Anthony Fox. That's going to be a day for both Enrico and, well, especially Mike Waller. But they go side by side once again as he's trying to maintain his position that unfortunately lost. But he gets the move back done into turn 5. The 992 isn't great under top speed. Very good under acceleration, but will die off pretty quickly. As well as the leader isn't down, well, any sort of breathing space just yet. It actually seems Vink has the fastest lap time so far. 142.210 compared to Dean Zunobovic, who has done a 142.492. So there is quite a noticeable difference in lap times there between them both. But it does seem Dean seems to be more consistent. Jeremy Swanson, though, needs to be careful, especially being in this train he's currently in, trying to get past Halovac as quickly as he can. It does seem Halovac makes a tiny bit of a mistake going into turn 9. He gets the nose out there, has to leave the racing room now going into the penultimate corner. Has the advantage of the inside line now, so he might be able to get this move done once and for all. Is there going to be a switchback? No, he still has his nose out there. I don't think he saw him there, but it does seem there was still enough room, luckily for both drivers. But that's going to be now Jeremy Swanson going into P21. It's going to be Halovac going into P22, potentially even P23 here, as we do actually see there's going to be Bao going on the inside line in his Ferrari 296 and to start finish straight. He has to, once again, unfortunately, try to use the jars for his advantage, but at the moment it isn't going to work for him. It does seem the overspeed of the Beamer was too much for Bao to be able to get past. Whereas now, because of that, Bao has lost quite a bit of time to Tom Week behind him. Ferrari versus Ferrari, but actually on the exit of turn 3, it does seem he's actually gained quite a bit of time. It just seems the perspective / the FOV of the cameras does exaggerate how close they actually are. It actually does seem there's going to be Bao making a tiny bit of mistake going into turn 4. That seems where a lot of people are making mistakes because of having to go on the inside apex there. But now going into turn 5, still going to be side by side, even with Bao's advantage of the inside line. It does seem now Tom Week was able to get by for position. So I'm not sure why Bao's flashing. I'm assuming he might have a... Not Bao, sorry. Week's... Yeah, did I say... I think I'm going crazy. But Week flashing, so I'm assuming he might have the live stream up. So, good move, Week, if you're a watcher. But it does seem as well. Going further down, Greg Ellis now side by side going into the penultimate corner. This is going to be with Christian Meyer. Christian Meyer getting the move done, and this is actually going to leave the door open for 2 more cars potentially to get by. It's going to be Madsen going side by side with him. Going into the start finish straight, losing his position to P12, almost a bit riding there, and now it's potentially even P13. This is not the day Greg wanted. Now we're going to have to go side by side with the McLaren, but the McLaren seems to have the better overspeed. I'm assuming Greg might be running quite a higher wings, well, perspective for himself. So now there's going to be contact there between, unfortunately, that is going to be between, I believe it's Blackick and Greg Ellis. And that's going to lose him a lot of time to the back, as well as we do see that's going to be the McLaren going slow. Not sure whose McLaren that actually is, but it's actually a back marker, so I'm not sure what's happened there for himself. I'm assuming that's Victor, unfortunately currently down in last, but he did show quite promising pace in today's race, so I'm assuming there might be some sort of technical issue, or he might have run out of fuel. He might have forgot to put fuel in. That would be a first, but he seems to still be going, so I'm not sure. But we do see there is still a dry line, but we do see now the track is starting to get wetter and wetter. 46 minutes left of this race so far. Still see quite an obvious dry line. So it does seem the cars are still dominating the track. There's going to be contact there between Blackick and Madsen. Does see Madsen able to hold it now going into turn 8. And it's actually going to be Greg Ellis being able to catch up once again after Blackick's little incident with Greg Ellis earlier. Now we will start seeing the rain becoming more and more obvious on our screens because it's going to start getting heavier and heavier throughout the race. Now we actually do see once again Blackick going side by side with Madsen for position going into the penultimate and ultimate corner. It's going to be him getting the inside line of both of them, so I don't think Madsen will stand a chance, but it does seem he's going to actually try to go for a switchback there. Fortunately doesn't work for himself, and then we do see he has a lot of pressure behind from Greg Ellis in the Ferrari 296 as well. Seems, yeah, I believe Greg might be running quite a high wing spec because he is just losing so much time there. Going on to the start-finish straight. There's now already an 8/10 gap. Speaking of it, now Madsen once again trying to create a tiny bit of breathing space between him and Greg Ellis, but you can just see how much time Greg Ellis actually gained through corners, so he is definitely running an obviously higher, or quite obvious higher wing spec compared to Madsen or Blackick, or potentially the rest of the field. Madsen still all over the rear of Blackick, but Blackick is starting to pull away ever so slightly every corner or so. It's not going to be the same for Madsen now. Madsen not being able to pull away at all. There was a bit of an issue there. I'm not sure who that was. That was the Brodsky, I believe, going into the pits, or Victor as well. Jeremy Swanson and Robert Jennings now both in position. A tiny bit of collision I saw there. But it does seem Swanson still behind Robert Jennings. It does seem Swanson's classed as a pro, so he needs to be a bit careful there. There is what seems to be a car backwards there. I'm not sure what happened. I'm assuming it was a bit of a slip moment, but now still going side by side all over the rear now of Robert Jennings. Still needs to be careful. Turn 8 loses the time to Robert Jennings due to a bit of a, I'm not even sure, a bit of hesitation almost on throttle, which is actually going to allow Tom Week as well in the silver class to actually catch up, as well as Revrock. So it's again starting to formulate a tiny bit of a train. as well as Dino Halovac. Going to try to go side by side going into turn 9. He doesn't brake as late as we have seen with previous drivers. It's still going to be Halovac down into P22, and it's going to be Liam Bout up into P21, potentially P20. No, that is actually that blue flag's car. It's surprising to see a blue flag that quickly, so I'm assuming there has been something pretty wrong so far, but I do take my hat off for him, who is still running the race so far. Madsen P11, Greg P10. So it's definitely Madsen lost that position to Greg Ellis. Now he needs to try catch back up to Blackick and get his revenge. James Terry now once again with what is going to be Zorakic going into turn 6. He's going to be able to have the inside line, which is definitely the better line. But now with the, well, you could say, with the rain starting to form and they're all on the dry tyres, that's really the only line you can take, and that is going to be the racing line. Still really, really light rain so far, so it's still a greasy track. And with the amount of cars we still have on track, it's not going to be that bad of an effect for the drivers at the moment. But in the next 10 minutes or so, the rain will get a bit more dominant, and that's when we probably will see the damp track occur. Actually, now saying that, the track did just go damp, so it is starting to potentially take a toll on the drivers. It's still going to be slick optimum so far. And in terms of Everett's tyres, I believe most people will still be on those slick tyres, and I'm not sure how many people will go for wet throughout the race, but in half an hour it's going to be heavy raining, so I'm assuming it's probably the best idea if you go for those wet tyres throughout the race. James Terry now needs to try to put his pedal to the metal a tiny bit to actually start to create a bit of breathing space between him and Zorakic, because it seems Zorakic's all over the rear end of him going into the mini straight between turn 3 and 4. Does him gets a better overspeed and exit there. Zorakic now trying to go side by side with him going into turn 5. Looks like he was trying to attempt the switch back there. Wasn't going to work for him just yet. Might be able to get the better exit speed, though it doesn't seem he is going to be able to. In fact, we actually see now it's going to unfortunately be Dabrowski. Going to be a key factor to see who gets past who, because Zorakic could actually gain quite a bit of time now. It does seem Dabrowski gets out of the way quite quickly there, going off into the run out area. Almost got a tiny bit of pressure. Two of these cars all over each other. Does get now closer to the pit time here. 40 minutes left to go, so it's already been 20 minutes. So it's definitely been quite interesting so far. Starting to lose the battles, unfortunately, but that is all right. We do see now James Terry starting to put his pedal to the metal a tiny bit. Zorakic not being able to still gain the amount of time that he's been able to do, as we do see there's now been a change in the rain. Rain becoming more and more heavy, as we can see more raindrops on the screen. You might not be able to see it as well. I'm not sure how well it's going to be rendering on your screen, but in the next 10 minutes it will get heavier until we get the stormy weather. I guess you could say the very, very heavy rain is still going to go side by side here. It does seem Zorakic was able to gain quite a bit of time. They're going through turn 4 now. It seems James Terry making a bit of a mistake. They're getting too eager on the throttle and not too eager on the brakes, and unfortunately that's going to be now Magiro. Well, actually no, unfortunately for Terry, that's going to be Zorakic up into P5 quite easily, as now we can actually see Declan Brogan as well in the horizon of James Terry's mirror in that Lamborghini. Going further down as well, Madsen once again wanting to put a bit of pressure on Greg Ellis. This is where he's going to start struggling. Greg, his top end speeds, but going through corners he should be whizzing, but now it seems Madsen, there we go. There is a humongous difference between, as we actually start seeing a tiny bit of spray there on the tyres of Greg Ellis's car. So it is starting to become damper and damper. In fact, you might see wet coming in the next, I'm going to say 10 minutes or so. Losing, unfortunately, so much time here now going through the corner complexes, but this is where we will see, as we take a reference, once it was 8 tenths, now 6 tenths, 5 tenths, so even on this really mini straight, he's able to catch up quite a significant amount, as we do see that's going to be James Terry coming into the pits to potentially put on. We'll keep an eye out on what tyres he goes on, but that's going to be the second person, I believe. Oh, actually, no, there's quite a few people. Whoa, why is there being a disqualification? I've not paid attention that much, but it seems that's unfortunately going to be Osric Major with a disqualification, and that will not be lifted. I believe it's now Vink all over the top of Dean Zunobovic. It does seem now this is where we're going to see traffic playing a major factor in this race for these two. Currently in the middle of 2 battles. This is Victor's battle, I believe, just in P9, I believe, so there is already a huge play starting to happen. And the fact these two are for position as well. Victor, unfortunately, looks like he might get a penalty for that kind of chicane, but all over the rear now. Dean is not going to have a very relaxing race like some of the ones he's had recently, as Victor gains back on the track behind the 2 drivers, which is going to be good for these two, especially Dean. Does seem that's going to be the BMW going off there. Will he keep off? Yes, he will. Now this is where we're going to see if Dean will lose his position to Vink. But Vink goes into the pits to try perform an undercut, because he knows now it might start becoming unbearable on those slick tyres. But it does seem Dean's going to stay out for at least another lap. But knowing Dean, he might stay until the exact halfway mark. But now Vink going into the pits to potentially play a new strategy, because he was faster, or quite a bit faster to say the least, compared to Zunobovic, of about 2 tenths in the dry. So is that going to be the same during the wet? He's going to try and get that undercut, because he will be able to gain quite a bit of time on Zunobovic now with those wet tyres. I'm assuming he's going to try to do a 50-50 strategy. If it's from a full fuel perspective, there is no mandatory fuel stop, it's just tyres. So it's all just really unpredictable on whose strategy will do what. There is quite a few people who have done their pit stops so far. And that is going further down. It does seem there's still a few battles on to occur, but because of the pit we do occur now, it is going to be the battles becoming to ramp up once again. It's going to be Fratilia losing the position to Axel Itri there. Almost very, very hesitant to get on the throttle there. Losing the position to Axel Itri down into P19 for him, up into P18 for Axel Itri. There seems to be a tiny bit of retaliation, attempted retaliation there from Fratilia for position, but we now see because of that he has lost even more time, and now we can see that's going to be Zorikik waving the blue flag to him. James Terry trying to get past Victor for position for P14. In fact, he is actually getting quite close at the moment. It does seem he is going to be P4 in class. P4 in class and in P15 is quite impressive, so I assume there has to be, well, especially for the next eval races for the next season, which I'm not sure when the next season is actually, but I do know this Thursday there is the Rookie Championship starting, and I believe now it's so popular that I think the grid is completely full of 50 cars. Unfortunately, due to contracts I have in place, I won't be able to broadcast it. I'm not sure if there is going to be a broadcaster or not, but that is all down to what Greg's magicalness on the admins are able to pull out. But now that's going to be Fratilia getting past Mike Waller for position. The Honda being quite a skeptical car during this race. In terms of, I'll be honest, in both driving's perspective and the car's performance, he has made a few peculiar moves, especially going into turn 9. I know it's probably definitely not intentional, but it did just seem very, very dangerous. And luckily, Mike Walker actually losing quite a bit of time to Fratilia. Fratilia, who hasn't done his pit stop. Mike Waller has done his pit stop. So this is actually looking like a big break here for Mike Waller, to say the least. So it's now Victor being able to go side by side here with James Terry. It seems it's actually going to be 2 side by sides and 1 corner, but it's going to be James Terry once again regaining his position of P14. Well, no, it does seem it's changed once again, but it seems Victor going down into P14 and James Terry into P13. As well as Mike Waller starting to lose time to Fritila now, but Fritila makes a bit of a mistake going into turn 8. That's going to lead him to unfortunately have quite an uncontrollable spin. Now it's going to be Mike Waller getting his big break and getting past Fritila for position, but we do now see Dean still out. It is still a damp track. In the next 10 minutes we should expect him to come in. He's been able to create a 29-second gap to the cars behind, but it's the only car we need to worry about is Vink, who has about a 50 or so second gap between him and P6 being Vink, who is currently provisional pole, I guess you could say, if the undercut does work in his favour. But net P1 or net P2 to say the least. Half an hour left to go. Getting a bit of a slip time there. Dean going into turn 6. You will definitely start feeling this on his inters. As you can see, there is starting to be a bit of, well, quite an immense bit of spray coming off the back of his car now. So you start seeing some puddles starting to formulate on the wet line, but there is still somewhat of a dry line to say the least. But it does seem Dean is starting to struggle, and he needs to be very, very careful of track limits going through turn 9, because he did almost seem to abuse it a tiny bit too much there. But I'm not sure if he did get awarded a track limit there, but it does seem Jeremy Swanson now all over the rear of Enrico Itri. Going into turn 4. Nearly goes side by side with him there on the exit speeds. Does seem that the Ferrari has quite good acceleration compared to the Mercedes. Still, the Mercedes all over the rear. I think that goes side by side there with what is going to be, I think that's Enrico Itri or Ricardo. I'm not actually. Who is that? Who is that? Oh, yeah, it was Enrico Itri. He's just not on the leaderboard. Does he know that's going to be Enrico going into the pits for some wet tyres? You can just see how much he's actually flying on the wet tyres compared to now the people on those slick tyres. But currently the biggest winner and loser during this race so far does seem to be the biggest winner so far was Enrico Itri, gaining 14 positions, but now going into the pits he's going to lose a few positions. But now Jeremy Swanson being the biggest winner, with Ricardo Coloma as well with 13. Biggest loser does seem to unfortunately be Dabrowski with 11 positions lost since the start of this race, which isn't great for him. But there is still half an hour, which can be classed as still another sprint race. But as well as that,
we are halfway through. Keep pushing.
Jim not saying we're halfway through. Still going to be 30, another 16 laps left. But Dean has came into the pits, and this is now going to be, if he comes out ahead of Vink or behind, he has still about 40 seconds. He has just gone up. He has 30 seconds, 10 seconds. It does seem realistically he is going to lose the position to Vink, which is going to make it a bit interesting for his streak of winning. Come back to it as Victor now all over the rear of James Terry for position. Don't usually see Victor actually battling during this race so far. I believe this is the first time he's actually had a battle in today's race that we've actually captured on camera. he comes off the stands now. He just needs to get past here. We can see the track map that is going to be now Vink getting past. This is going to be really close here. This is actually going to be really close, actually. It has the undercut work from him. Yes, it has. It's going to be Dean now in P2 and Vink in P1. So how big is the gap now? It seems the gap's going to be about 5 seconds. So that is not a big gap at all for the pit. So this is going to make everything quite a bit more interesting for Dean. 28 minutes left to go. Can he be more confident in the wet compared to Vink? Vink showing immense pace at Imola here today. 4.4 seconds between the two. We will have to keep an eye on it. It does seem Vink made a tiny bit of a mistake going into turn 4. Now just down to 4 seconds. He needs to try to maintain at least 4 seconds to be comfortable. So we do see that's a very, very damaged McLaren 720S Evo. I'm not sure who that is, unfortunately, but that is going to be a lot of damage for them, to say the least. As well as going further up, it's going to be Victor all over the rear to James Terry once again. So we do see that's going to be the Golf livery of, I believe, one of the back markers. Now the back marker letting him through is now going to leave Victor to try go side by side with him going into turn 4. Doesn't work for him just yet. Has to wait. I have to say, going back to the leaders fight at the moment, Dean has shaved a second out of Vink's time so far. So it's safe to say at the moment Dean might be better in the wet. But at the moment it could be an anomalous lap. It could be a bit of a messy lap here for Vink. We can just see him in the distance behind that McLaren. That McLaren actually could be quite a huge factor for how much time he loses or gains, actually, because if that slipstream could be absolutely torrential, but it does seem the McLaren lets him by there. There's going to be 3.4 seconds between each other with clean air for the time being for both, as we do see Robert Jennings in front of Vink there. Not sure how easy Robert Jennings will let him by, because I believe he's actually fighting for position as well. So that does throw a spanner in the works completely. But the Brewski P28 all over the rear of, I believe it's Max RS. Yes, it is. The legendary Snails BMW M4 going into the penultimate corners. Don't see he gains any time on the braking, but does see Max RS brakes very, very late down. That's going to cause pretty much a free move there for both Stigvort, and that's also going to be, I believe, the Broski as well. The Broski being able to get by with the other BMW Frutilla as well. So they're not going to be complaining too much at all about that, as Christian Mayer going up into P10 so far in the top 10. Has he done pit stops? Yes, he has. So he is actually fighting for positions. He wants to try to get by back on Victor, as we saw earlier. But one thing we have to take into consideration is now a wet track, officially with 25 minutes left to go. Everyone should be on wet tyres. We'll do a quick check to see if there's anyone who is psychotic enough to be on dry tyres, but I don't think anyone is. I know there's a strategy, but I believe this is only for tracks with a load of straights, like Spa, for example. But I know some people stay on the dries, but in this factor, that's only to help when it starts drying up again, because you can gain a lot of time when it dries up when you're on the slick tyres. But because it doesn't have any symptoms of drying up during the end of this race, it is going to be the fastest strategy to be on those wet tyres. And in fact, it's probably going to be the only strategy in general, as Dino Halovac now going side by side with him going into turn 4. That's going to be Jeffrey Witter in that AF Corsa Ferrari 296 going into turn 5. He's just being a tiny bit unpredictable there. Dino going into turn 5 and which side he wants to take. It does seem now Jeffrey Witter glued himself to the inside line. 24 minutes left to go. This race is actually flown by so far. Flew? That's a new one. There has been a yellow flag. I'm not sure who has created that yellow flag, as Eddard in the pits now. Only one more person to actually do his pits. It does seem Victor actually... Is it Victor who had the disqualification? No, it was Ozark? No, that's a show. Was it Osric? I think it was Osric who had the penalty. It seems he has left the server now. 2 people have retired since the start of this race, unfortunately, for the penultimate race. I believe next is going to be Barfus, which is going to be quite interesting to say the least. But now, does seem there's a tiny bit of a glitch there on the cameras, but it does seem now Christian Mayer losing the position to Greg Ellis as well. Greg having the strong advantage point of corner speeds with his higher wing setup. Not sure if any of these are currently on dry setups or on wet setups. It's probably wiser to be on a balanced setup, but I believe quite a few will be on those wet setups, to say the least. Does seem now Wick to making a tiny bit of mistake, which is going to let Greg Ellis pass through turn 8 absolutely easily. But now Greg Ellis needs to be a bit cautious, because obviously Wick is probably using a lower wing. But it does seem actually Greg Ellis makes a mistake going into turn 9 and loses the position to Victor, and now potentially Christian Mayer as well. In fact, he has now having to go side by side with him into the penultimate corner, which is never something you want to do, but does seem he might back off there and try to do some sort of switchback. The moment it does get the overspeed, and that is a beautifully executed switchback, to say the least. He gets the inside line going into the final corner, gets the move done, but we do have to see now and take into consideration how much slipstream Christian Mayer will actually get using the wing as a reference point to see how much time he actually gains. At the moment, it doesn't seem to be a lot. It doesn't seem he's actually trying to stay in the slipstream zone of Greg Ellis, but at the moment he didn't actually, well, was able to get past. Fertila as well on stick vote. Still far by side, but Fertila able to get by going into turn 5. Now actually getting on with the race, it does seem it's starting to become a bit more riding in terms of the leader. Now it does seem Zonobovic's paces became a bit more settled. In fact, it does seem there has been a bit of an increase in pace for Vink in the wet as well, so it could actually be Vink that could be in favour to win this race. So do you see now Christian Mayer trying to stick his nose onto the outside line going into turn 1. Does seem Greg Ellis uses the entire wet racing line to his advantage point. There's a huge oversteer moment there for Christian Mayer. Will lose a tiny bit of time, potentially a bit of tyre quality as well. 20 minutes left to go. Carlo Colombo potentially doing a team strategy and letting his teammate by. So it's now Tom Week now potentially going to go through the inside line, go into the start finish here. He does weave there. There was a defensive weave, but I'm not sure how allowed that is into GT racing, but Ricardo Colombo maintains his position of P15 as it stands going into turn 5. Tom Weeks still all over the rear of him, both in those Ferrari 296s, so it's the same machinery. It's also going to be him now. It's all going to be down to driver confidence and setup, who's going to have the better setup and the more suitable setup for wet weather racing. As Renato Simic, I believe is how you say it. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Same, I think it's Meow. I don't speak. I think that's... I'm actually not sure what language that is. Welcome on in. Now Ricardo Colombo still behind. Axel literally is now, it's a tiny bit of a big break here for Axel Itchy being able to actually gain a bit of time because of Tom Week being able to put a bit of pressure on Ricardo Colombo. $18 minutes left to go. Tom Week still behind. Still being able to gain time though on Ricardo Colombo. Oh, actually making a ton of a mistake there. We will get a replay on what happened. I believe he did just go through a puddle going into turn 8. He does seem to try to do a bit of a juke move there on the BMW M4. The BMW M4 goes wide. It does seem it just goes on the apex there, almost hitting Tom and Ricardo there, as well as that's going to be, I forgot his name unfortunately. I think it's Wooler as well, trying to get by. Now, actually, does seem just how lethal those curbs actually are now. Going to put himself down into P17. Fortunately there for him. It's P18, sorry. Enrico Itchy just still all over the rear of the other Itchy, of Axel Itchy. Just over a quarter of this race left to go. So that is actually driver off. I'm not sure who that was. That is a driver off, and I can't see it because there's no blue light, well, yellow flag detection thing anymore, which is the most annoying thing to come out of race control. Starting to ease off the rain, but it does get heavier for the final moments of the race. Ricardo Colombo under a tiny bit of pressure now from Tom Week as well. Tom Week being able to get by, as we also see now that's going to be Wooler trying to get past Colombo going through the penultimate corner, but now he makes a tiny bit of mistake, which now causes Axel Itchy and Enrico Itchy to both catch up to try gain up into P6 and potentially try and catch up with the field once again of Ricardo Colombo and Madsen ahead of themselves, and that's also going to be Tom Week as well. Starting to get a bit rough here. Oh my god, that's going to be a huge crash there, but I'm not even sure what happened there. Now, it is Tom Week, and we'll get a huge replay on what's happened there. It does seem there's going to be a lot of damage there for Tom Week going into turn 1. Does he just do the same thing as we saw earlier? Yes, he does. Just gets on, unfortunately, the wrong apex there, and it's going to be Mike Wooler, unfortunately, colliding with him, and it's going to be quite a bit of damage to both Tom and Wooler there, unfortunately, as we do try to see if there's any damage visible on his car. Obviously, you should see it in real life, but unfortunately, due to the contact physics and the contact patch / collision body being quite a bit, let's say, invincible in this game, it doesn't seem to show that well. But hey ho, Liam Bound now going side by side with Revrock for position, going into turn 5. Liam Bound now getting the advantage point of getting the overspeed onto the exit. Just drives by, having the wet line there. Greg Ellis now as well on Wixer. Getting the slipstream. Going into turn 1. He might struggle with the higher wing he is currently using. Going to be a bit of contact once again. Going into turn 1. So you also see, I believe that is going to be Christian Mayer now trying to gain the scratches now of Greg Ellis. It's not going to work for him just yet, as we do now see Greg Ellis trying to defend and attack at the same time. Needs to balance what he does at the same time. If he prioritizes attacking, or does he prioritize defending? At the moment, he does seem to be prioritizing attacking, but it doesn't seem to be working just yet for himself. As it does just have to try and tuck himself behind Wictor and wait for any sort of move to actually potentially open up for himself, and not lose that time to Christian Mayer behind him as well. Now, once again, it does seem Greg Ellis making a bit of a mistake going into turn 8 there. That is going to lead for Christian Mayer to actually gain a bit of time there going through the exit of the corner. As well as now Christian Mayer being able to try and gain time going through turn 9. Doesn't seem to work there. It does seem Greg Ellis makes a bit of a gap for himself there through turn 9. And now he's going to try to again prioritize attacking Wictor 4P9 with 11 minutes left to go of this race. Does want to try go for the inside line, doesn't work for himself just yet. Still the only battle left on track, and it's going to be 4 of them almost going 3 wide here because of that little mistake of the McLaren letting the cars by. It's going to be side by side with Greg Ellis and Christian Mayer. He is going to have the inside line going into the first part of turn 4. Now going into the second part, it's going to be Christian Mayer having the inside line, but now he's in the advantage point of having the inside line for turn 5. Tries taking it nicely. Is there going to be any sort of switch back from Christian Mayer? At the moment, it doesn't seem so. But in terms of now the leader race, we can see it has definitely decreased. Sure, is it going to be enough time for Dean Zanabovic to be able to gain on Vink for position? It's now down to 5 attempts going into turn 1, so he's able to gain quite a bit of time here. So I'm assuming there's a bit of a mistake happening from Zanabovic, and this is now going to be the closest battle on track. But we also do see it's going to be Christian Mayer as well, balancing out that. It's now going to be side by side, potentially going into turn 9, just again tucking himself behind Greg Ellis, away for a mistake to happen. In fact, the mistake's going to be him, and that's going to lose him so much time here. In fact, he actually managed to recover it quite well. There might be a track limit there for himself, but it doesn't seem there's been any sort of drive-throughs yet during this race as we go into the single digits remaining. So there's going to be contact there between them both as Wicks. It's going to be punted off track there, and there's going to be a spin there from Greg as we do get a replay going on to the final 2 corners on what happened here, as it does seem to Greg break later. I'm not really sure what happened there, and if Greg was taking his normal line or if Wictor was slow, or just Greg might have misjudged it, but it's obviously something for the stewards to decide later. Robert Jennings now under a bit of pressure now. That's going to be Maguro, but Maguro is not going to be in this battle, so it's going to be him and Revrock. So as now we do see Waller actually going into the wall there, as I did see. I think he might have just got a tiny bit of ego on the throttle going onto the ultimate corner. Going to the exit now of the ultimate corner. Does seem, did it happen before? Yes, it did. It did happen even before as I'm just trying to see what happened, it does seem he had to try to tuck himself off the track as quickly as he can. Now it does seem every battle's gone apart from the battle of the leaders. Now Tom Week playing a major factor in potentially Vink's win or Zonobovic's win, as it's now gone down to, it's gone up to 7 tenths there. So Vink makes a tiny bit of a mistake there. Just going to put it down to 5 to 6 tenths time being. Vink just needs to do what he's doing, because catching up to a driver is one thing, but getting past is another, because I reckon Vink is probably very, very capable of trying to defend there, as it's a huge lunge there from Zonderbovic. He's trying to gain time on the braking quite silly ways, to be frankly honest. And that's actually going to lose him a bit of time, but Greg Ellis once again as well, side by side with Victor after the mistake that happened between them both. It's going to be all over the rear of each other. Now this actually could be the opportunity for Greg Ellis to get by for P10. I think it goes side by side going into turn 5. Not going to be able to get by yet though, unfortunately, yet for himself. Gets the slipstream going into start finish straight. 7 minutes left to go. Is it actually going to be a major advantage at the moment? It does seem as he's going to try to go side by side before the end of the start finish straight. It doesn't seem he's going to have enough overspeed. He tries to go for the outside line actually. Last minute, is he going to brake later? No, he is not, as it does seem Victor placed his car in the middle of the track to make himself look unpredictable on his line he was going to take, and that is going to be now Victor still preserving his space of P10. Greg Ellis and P11, as well as that, the gap has decreased significantly because of the slipstream that is occurring between Vink and Zonderbovic. Vink putting his pedal to the metal now to try create a bit of breathing space between them both. At the moment it doesn't seem to be working. Zonderbovic all over the rear of him. Zonderbovic being a bit more consistent than Simpson Vink. But this is where we will see again the factor of traffic playing quite a huge part. It does seem, I believe that might be Enrico or Riccardo just getting out of the way quite quickly. Just going to be good for both drivers. Almost going off track there, Vink. Now we do see this is where the pressure is going to start setting up for Vink going into turn 5. As we did see turn 4, that was almost quite a major mistake there from Vink. 6 minutes left to go. Can we see Vink being able to defend for that long? It does seem to go into turn 6. A bit of a dummy move there by Zonderbovic, which did cost him about 2 tenths or so, but it's going to be a bit of a mistake there from Vink. It's going to go side by side going into turn 6, going into turn 7 now. It's going to be Zonderbovic regaining the lead with 6 minutes left to go. Are we going to see any sort of retaliation here from Vink at the moment? Doesn't seem he's going to be able to get, well, close enough. As Zonderbovic now starting to drive away, but that one silly mistake is going to be probably Vink beating himself up for that. Just going for turn 6, I reckon he would have been able to keep it there, but we do see there's going to be a tiny bit of a mistake there from Zonderbovic, so there could have been a chance there for Vink to get by, but at the moment it does seem Zonderbovic's back ahead, and now he needs to try to stay composed, because he's usually in the lead of this race, but it's never usually this close, to say the least, between the leaders. As we do see there is a tiny bit of traffic ahead. I think that is Vic, I think it's name. I think it's something Vort. I'm sorry. I think it's Stigvort actually, isn't it? It is Stigvort ahead in the McLaren 720S Evo, but this is where Vink's going to be under quite a big advantage point here. He's going to have that slipstream on Zonderbovic going into turn 1, but is it going to be enough? It doesn't seem it is. Actually, can it? Doesn't seem so. He gains time. It's now going to go down to 2 tenths between them both with 5 minutes left. Stigvort trying to get out of the way as quickly as he can, not affecting both parties at all, so very, very well done there from Stigvort. Zonderbovic now having to just try defend for his life and try to put in throttle down and create a bit of a breathing space, which he has done. It's now down to up to 3 tenths. So he's starting to gain. This is where Zonderbovic's, hopefully his consistency will pay off. Still 4 minutes left to go. Anything can happen and anything will happen. slipstream is going to be weaker and weaker now. I think gap being 5 tenths now, so Zonderbovic starting to make a bit of breathing space for himself, and hopefully the slipstream, well, for his sake, won't be too strong. In fact, only a tenth or two were actually gained on the start finish straight. It is going to be relief for him, to say the least. Rain's starting to get heavier now, as you can see. Blue flag's being waved ahead of Zonderbovic. I believe that's going to be Ricardo this time in the E3 rating for R296. Currently in P13, just shows you the pace difference between the leaders and the midfield at the moment. And actually now they're going to still go side by side. I'm not sure what's happening here, but actually this is going to lead to quite a significant catch-up from... Oh no, it's not. It's going to happen the same way to Vink as well, and that's actually going to increase the second... It's increase the gap to just under a second now. So as Greg Ellis is still trying to fight for P10 here. He might be able to get this lap. He only has about 2 laps left to try do it, as this has to be his time to do it as he goes into turn 1, taking the outside line for the first part, but the inside line for the second part. But at the moment he does seem to just stay behind, but it doesn't seem Wick to make a tiny bit of a mistake, which is going to be Greg Ellis all over the rear of him. Now, thinking of it, he's now going to have the slipstream, a very, very strong slipstream. Only a tenth between them both. Wick to doing his same decisions last time of taking the inside of the... Well, the middle of the track, sorry, to try defend both lines, which he is able to successfully do. But turn 5 is going to be a crucial point to see if Victor is able to defend himself. But it does seem whoever gets the better acceleration out of the corner will probably win this fight, as it does seem Greg Ellis trying to go side by side once again. All over the rear of him. Now turn 6. Still all over the rear, but it's not going to be enough just yet for himself to be able to gain that position. Now it does seem actually no, Victor's going to make a tiny bit of mistake going into the end of turn 8. Just now going to lead it to go side by side, but we do see that's going to be a 3 wide for momentary, as I think that is Dabrowski getting in the way a tiny bit, and that's going to be now unfortunately Victor making a tiny bit of a mistake for himself, and it's going to be Greg Ellis taking P10 now. And unfortunately, Victor going down for P11 for himself. As unfortunately, I don't think having traffic in that place, unless was the best well, outcome, I guess you could say. Sorry, my brain is starting to go a tiny bit. I was very, very tired. But unfortunately, Dabrowski couldn't do anything there. So... not his fault at all. Well, I think it's Dabrowski. I think it is. Anyway. But now Zonderbovic being able to already create 1.1 second gap for himself. 18 seconds left, as we are going to do another lap. Now this is going to be the final lap of the race.
Leaders on final lap now.
We will actually start seeing people finish early because of, obviously, difference between... It seems to have finished just yet. Whereas that Jeremy Swanson actually under pressure from Victor now. Well, the other way around here is actually that's going to be a huge mistake there from going to turn 6 there from Victor. That could potentially be his final track limit warning. He is just defending for his life now. This is very good for Greg Ellis. Now it's going to go side by side, unfortunately for him, going into turn 9. This could be Jeremy Swanson getting by in the Mercedes. In fact, he has been able to. Is there going to be retaliation? No, as Dabrowski's actually all of the rear of him as well. So Dabrowski's actually challenging him, and he gets by Victor. Victor not having the best of the last 2 laps or so. Now, he will not be able to get past Jeremy Swanson. It's almost a shield for Jeremy Swanson now of the broski. It's going to be, unfortunately, Wigty going down into P12 from South. Jeremy Swanson going up into P11 and Greg Ellis still in P10. Do you now see Dean going through the final few corners? And that's going to be Dean winning the penultimate round of the season of the World Tour Season 2 Challenge. Very, very, very good race here from Dean Zonderbovic and Vink. Two of these drivers starting to make a bit of a rivalry between each other, and that is going to be Dean winning it by practically, you could say, mere seconds. If that wasn't, well, if Dean wasn't as consistent as he was, that would have definitely been a different story, to say the least. But it's going to be Dean increasing his lead of the championship by quite a bit. It's Robert Alavi as well taking P3. Eric Magiro coming across the line as well for P4. And it's going to be Zorikik as well, as that's going to be Ferrari 296. I'm not sure who that is. Going to be in P5. Ivo taking P5, increasing his championship leads as well, going into the final race, as well as Declan Brogan and Blekik as well, going across the start-finish straight and start-finish line. It's James Terry a bit further behind, but going to take P8 from South, being the lead, and their P1 in class from South, as well as now Christian Mayer as well, taking what is going to be P4 in class from South, as well as Greg Ellis taking P10 after a very, very good race from South, being able to gain 6 positions since the start of this race. So definitely could say quite a good race from South there, as well as now we can see Jeremy Swanson coming P10 as Victor as well, coming across the line for P11, so was able to gain a position in the end. As well as now Ryan Madsen coming across the line, and the final person to cross the line to take the checkered flag for P13. And I must say, very, very good race to say the least. I do apologise if I do sound a tiny bit groggy, I guess could be the word. I am ridiculously tired. I think I'm running on probably half an hour's sleep. I'm in the middle of exam season, which isn't great, but that is not really important, to be honest, for the time being. But this is going to be the end of the penultimate round as we go on to the final round of the World Tour Season 2, and it's going to be at a very interesting track, to say the least. Is going to be at Bathurst at around, I think it's only an hour race, so it's definitely still going to be as close as anything, but it's definitely going to be something to hopefully bring good racing and not too many crashes, because I'm not sure how many people are confident around Bathurst. But I have been your commentator as always. I've been Alex Newman, also known as Aces in the Discord. I think I changed my name though, so it's Alex Newman either way. But I will see you for the last rounds to see who is crowned the champion. But I think actually Dean has won the championship already, but we'll do all of that next week when I have actually graphics for it. But I have been your commentator. I will have a great rest of, I'm going to say, have a great rest of your evening. And I will see you next week on the 20th of May to see who is crowned championship in all 3 classes. Have a great rest of your night, and goodbye.